Hi guys, welcome to The Witch's Voice, and I'm your Friday host, Isul1980. This week's topic is covens and soul practitioners, basically pros and cons. Now, I should tell you a little bit about my history before I continue. Um, I have been practicing the craft since I was, I think, 19. So it's been about 12 years. But in those 12 years, I've been pretty much a soul practitioner. But not five, like maybe 3 of those years, I was in an actual, honest to God, tradition-based coven. It was not a collected coven. It was a tradition-based. I'm not gonna say what tradition it is because I don't want to be a poster girl or a spokesperson for that particular tradition. What I will say about the tradition is that it's one of the very dominant Wiccan traditions. It's one of the very popular ones, one of the a very well known one. And that's all I'm gonna tell you. So yeah, and it is humid as hell in my car. I am sweating. And my asthma is on like overload. Anyways, yeah, so back to what I was saying. Back to the topic. And in my experience, I really have no preference because I had a very positive experience with being a soul practitioner, and also sharing my beliefs and my experience and the way that I do things with other people in a very eclectic group. I enjoyed it as a soul practitioner. And after a couple years, I was like, I really want more of the more coalescing, more connection between me and a group of people. I wanted more of the that more bond, that more strength, I guess you could say. Not in like magic, but more as in like a camaraderie. And then I explored and I tried to find a local coven. And it was actually really simple. I went on Witchvox, I think it's what it's called. Yeah, Witchvox. I'm sweating. Woo! And I went on Witchvox and I just looked for basically covens in my area. Plain and simple. I found one. I sent them an email. They sent me an email back. And the rest is history. And I ended up becoming a first degree in that particular tradition. I got initiated. I got the whole kid and caboodle. And in that experience, I mean, yes, I've heard of high priestesses that were all like, oh, I'm the queen of the circle. Don't mess with me. Everything I say goes, kind of a thing. And my high priestess, she was very democratic. She was very democratic. She was very she wasn't like loving in the sense like, oh, I'm like another mom for you. No, she was very much like, that's your goddamn problem. Don't come to me. But she was more like a sister. And she was not, nor her nor the high priest was in any way commanding, or in a sense, you're beneath me, so I step on you when I want to. Obviously, though, there were times where they had to basically teach us, and it wasn't always roses and the flowers and all that jazz. There were arguments. There were times where we were at each other's throats, but it wasn't like we hated each other. It was very much just like a regular family discussion that would get heated up. But other than that, it was very positive. I still love them very much. They opened my eyes to a lot of things, and we kind of learned from each other. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm a high priest or I'm a high priestess, I know more than you, and there's not a goddamn thing you could ever teach me. It wasn't like that at all. So my opinion when it comes to covens, I think it's really because in that time that I was with them, I did meet other high priests and other high priestesses that did have. I won't say that they were bitches because they weren't. They were not. But they did have that. Oh, they did have that. The coven meets on Saturdays, and if it's your son's birthday, well, tough luck for your son. You have to come to coven. And there were some high priestesses that I met in that time. Not just part of that tradition, but also part of other traditions and that I had met in general in the past, in that time period, anyways. And the reason I'm no longer in the coven is not because they threw me out or wasn't anything negative. It was actually the fact that my high priest and priestess had moved. They got and the sun is just killing this view. I'm trying to block it out. Here we go. I think this is as good as it's gonna get, people. Let me move it a little bit. Maybe you can see a little bit better and it doesn't look that bad. Okay, so they had the opportunity to move to a upstate, to a very beautiful house with land that they have been wanting for a very long time, that they've been searching for. It was going to be a lot much easier financially for them to live there than where they were at the time. And they honestly took the opportunity, which of course I understand completely, and I actually encouraged it because they're really awesome people and they really needed this. And I didn't feel comfortable with the covens that were in my general area that were part of the tradition. I didn't know them very well, and I just didn't want to replace my high priest and priestess. I felt very comfortable with them. I couldn't look at another woman or man and consider them my high priest or priestess. If that makes any sense. So I didn't want to go through the whole trouble of being basically fostered into another coven, because they wouldn't be around to get me higher up in the degree system. But even though I'm no longer part of that coven and I'm back to being a soul practitioner, basically, I don't feel that loss that much of not being in a coven anymore, because I had that experience and it was a positive experience, and I recommend it for anybody to at least try. Woo! Asthma's driving me crazy. I recommend to at least try it at least once in your life, and not to be all like, oh, well, I've heard so much negativity, and it was, I've heard so much negativity about, high priestesses being, like these little bitches and blah, 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 and being all commanding and treating you like crap and all that jazz. I would say look at it first, give it a shot, and don't just believe that it's not good just because of what other people say. And as a soul practitioner, I really enjoy it. You do your stuff when you want. Nobody tells you when to do it. Which is actually, it's much harder because you need more discipline. To be honest, you need more discipline because when you're in a coven, there's somebody that'll tell you, hey, did you forget to do this? Don't forget to do this, or you gotta do this now. It's more controlled for you. And as a soul practitioner, you do whatever you want. So if you wake up and you're just like, I just don't want to meditate, I just don't want to do this, then you just don't, which is good and bad. But if you don't have that drive, it's really difficult. So yeah, I mean, it's really up to you guys what you guys believe. I I like both personally. I like the being in a coven, but I also like being a soul practitioner. And if you can find a coven that's very much like, hey, when we hang out, we do this, but on your day when you're not with us or when you're not doing stuff with the coven, you can do whatever the fuck you want. That's awesome. And my coven was like that. They were, even though it was a tradition based. If I want to do a spell by myself or wanted to do magic, which I could by myself, I didn't have to do it. I didn't have to have my high priestess's approval. Obviously, I would go to her just because I wanted to, not because I had to. To let her know or to ask for her advice on any kind of spells or magical activities that I was, or metaphysical activities that I was thinking or planning on doing, whether it be on my own or if I wanted to do it in a group setting with the coven. So that's my experience in a coven. But like I said, pros and cons. It would be, for me, pro for being in a coven. The camaraderie, the sense of family. There's a saying, coven is the family that you pick, not the family that you're given. The con of it is sometimes, just like any family, you're gonna argue. There's gonna be conflict. There's gonna be people that you're not gonna like. But then again, you're always gonna have somebody in your life that you're not gonna like. There's always gonna be somebody in your group of friends that's like the one girl that's a bitch that you're not gonna like. That you guys are always at each other's throats and blah blah blah. But that's all the time. And my pro and con for being being a soul practitioner. The pro, you can do whatever the fuck you want. You can decide that if you want to call the elements first and then cleanse the circle, you can. It's up to you. The downside, the con, is that if you don't have, because you're by yourself, you don't have anybody to push you or to remind you, you're never gonna, you're gonna like let it, well, not that you are, but you can let it fall to the wayside. And later on you could be like, wow, I never got around to to reaching this level of blah that I wanted to, that I didn't because I was too lazy or I forgot or I just wasn't in the mood. So yeah, those are my pros and cons of being a soul practitioner versus being in a coven. And I hope you guys enjoyed it, learned something from it, and hope that you like mine and the other guys, my other colleagues' videos. And hopefully next time I will not be from my car in a humid car with a really bad cough because of my asthma. And hopefully I'll have internet. Bye, guys.